Hello, this is Stephen Piazza. I am the artistic director and conductor of the Los Angeles Symphonic Winds, welcoming you to the first in a series of live stream broadcasts featuring members of the Los Angeles Symphonic Winds and our extended family. I'm particularly happy that you are joining us today for our premiere episode, particularly in light of the fact of all the things that are going on in the world, both on the political spectrum, the medical spectrum, and of course, the social spectrum that has affected everybody's lives in such profound ways. And as you are aware, this pandemic and the times that we are going through has necessitated a change in many organizations and how we present the kinds of things we do. And that's been true, of course, for the Los Angeles Symphonic Winds. And that's one reason I was so thrilled to host the series that we called Summer Sounds of the Los Angeles Symphonic Winds, which happened to turn into the Fall Sounds and then the Winter Sounds. And we just completed that series of concerts and events for you with a wonderful holiday presentation that I was so proud to be a part of. Now, however, we've turned to a different kind of presentation, and we're going to give you an opportunity to actually participate in this one. You can chat, you can send questions to us because we're live streaming, and we have a very interesting show today to open up with. I think you'll find it quite entertaining and also hopefully illuminating as well, because you'll get some background to the Los Angeles Symphonic Winds and how we began as an organization to reach the point that we are at now. So we're going to open up with a piece of music that is particularly appropriate for this time because it represents a lot of the things that are going on today, as a matter of fact. And when I first put this program together, I really didn't have the idea of how important this particular piece would be in terms of reflecting the times. The piece is entitled Instantaneous Rag, and it's by a composer by the name of William English. And it was written in 1915, which, as you know, was just after the First World War started. Now, the United States didn't get involved in this, but clearly there are a lot of important political changes that were taking place as a result of that. And the piece that we're playing, Instantaneous Rag, not only was a big success in the United States, but it was also exported to European countries as well. And the great European director, actually he was German, in 1919, knew of this ragtime craze which was taking over America and incorporated a piece of ragtime dance in a movie that he made in 1919. This is, of course, when Germany was going through a lot of terrible repercussions after having, of course, lost the First World War. And so to have this piece be such this movie be such a joyous thing was, I thought, quite fascinating, because there's a scene from the motion picture. The motion picture is entitled The Oyster Princess, and there's a big foxtrot scene in this. Now, foxtrot was kind of a generic term for the dances that were going on. So I thought I would put the 1995 recording that the LA Winds did of Instantaneous Rag to the motion picture that Ernst Lubitsch did in 1919, and I think you'll find it quite enjoyable. Well, I thought that would be a joyous opening to this concert series that we're presenting for you, this live stream. And I don't have to remind you, of course, that around that same time, 1918, similar kind of pandemic was occurring, something that they ended up calling the Spanish flu. But in spite of all that, it's great to have some joyous music and some music that lifts the spirit. And I think that's one thing that music can do so beautifully. So at this point in the live stream, I'd like to introduce you to a young woman who came to join us actually very recently and hasn't been able to participate fully in the group because of all the kinds of things that are going on, but we nonetheless really appreciate her. In fact, she was one of the first ones to step up to volunteer to be part of this live stream. She also put together, you may recall, those of you who have seen the series Summer Sounds, that she gave a wonderful presentation of her instrument, the oboe, which was used, of course, by the Los Angeles Unified School District. And she also participated, of course, in the Christmas holiday music that we did just a few short weeks ago. So would you please join me in welcoming a young woman who was actually came to us by way of Oklahoma and also Virginia. She was an English and political science major and also an ESL teacher of Japanese. She ended up getting a master's degree in professional writing, but we know her best as a terrific oboe player. Would you please join me in welcoming Kelly Smith to this broadcast?
Hello.
Kelly, thank you so much for helping out with this, being the first one to volunteer for this. You deserve special recognition for this. So thank you so much for being a part of this live stream event. Now, I've got a couple of questions to ask you. You may be able to help me out with this. I know you were interested in a variety of other things growing up and obviously got degrees in other fields. What was it about the oboe, which seems to be, I don't know, an obscure kind of instrument as opposed to voice or piano or guitar? What was it about the oboe that attracted you to learn to be such an artist on it?
Well, I heard it and it just had this kind of plaintive, sorrowful sound, and that just it just spoke to me like, wow, like this is such an expressive instrument. I wanna play that. And there just seemed to be so much you could do with like the sound to be a sad sound or more playful. It's just very, I think, has a lot of range of expression and tone. And that was very appealing to me.
Good. Now, did you have any particular encouragement? Were there other musicians in your family or friends that encouraged you along the way to take this up, or something that you decided on your own?
It's actually something I decided to do on my own. I don't come from a musical family, but I'm glad that things turned out the way they did because I have lifelong friends that I've made and a built-in kind of social community wherever I go.
Excellent. Now, the piece that you picked out to perform for us today happens to be one of my favorite oboe pieces in the whole repertoire. You did a beautiful job on the solo from the slow movement from the Brahms Violin Concerto when you did the presentation for Summer Sounds. Thank you so much for doing that. And those of you who saw that know that you heard Kelly do it all by herself without an orchestra. And then I put the orchestral version of it right after that so you could see how it fit in the context. That was just beautiful. But this one doesn't need an orchestra, does it? Can you tell us why you picked this particular piece and its name?
You're right. It is the Six Metamorphoses after Ovid. Ovid's Metamorphoses is a series of poems, and each one represents a Roman figure, a mythological figure, and the piece is a performance art, so it doesn't have any accompaniment. It sounds great as it is. One of the reasons I chose it is as an English major, I did a lot of reading in Greek and Roman mythological studies, and I feel like this piece really captures each personality of each figure very well, and it's fun to play above all. Like you can really kind of embody each figure. This first movement, which is Pan, is my favorite of the six. I also wanted to choose a piece that maybe people haven't heard before, that's a bit more modern and obscure, and it does show kind of the range and timbre of the oboe.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing it right now. In fact, those people who can read music will also enjoy following it along, because I've put the music to your selection right up on the screen so they can follow along with what you're doing and your beautiful and very plaintive and evocative playing of Pan from the Six Metamorphoses by Ovid and written by Benjamin Britten. Thank you so much, Kelly. That was just beautiful. And if you people who are watching or listening to this live stream have any questions or comments, you can please post them, and Kelly will stick around and we'll have time later on to answer those things, or we can get to you over the course of the week. Thank you so much, Kelly. Bravo to you. And I look forward to working together with you in a live medium where we're actually making music again. Thank you so much, Kelly, for being here today with us.
Sure thing.
Okay, so now I'm going to bring in somebody I've known a lot longer than I've known Kelly, and this is of course Charles Fernandez, Chuck Fernandez, who first became affiliated with the Los Angeles Symphonic Winds back in 2004, and I've invited him on today's live stream to serve as the guest host and be the one who leads the interview. And I thought a number of people had questions about me and my background and how I became involved in the LA Winds and how it came to be. And I thought I'd let Chuck be the one who interviews me for this. So welcome, if you will, to our good friend and great composer, great arranger, great bassoon player, and great friend, Mr. Charles Fernandez.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's really fun to be able to put Steve on the hot seat for a change. So I do have some questions for him, and you're going to learn some very interesting things about his history that I didn't know before we put these things together. So, Steve, let me start with this. I know you graduated from USC in 1971 and received a master's degree in 1974 as a clarinet performance major. But what made you pick up the stick and get into conducting?
Well, I'd like to say it was by accident, and in a very real sense it was. You know, I had some great teachers when I was growing up, so that really helped get me started, very encouraging people. I studied with a guy named Michael Chul in North Hollywood, and he wasn't a great clarinet player, but he was a great teacher and a great educator. So that really got me off to a great encouraged start. Then I studied with Ben Cantor, who owned at the time Baxter Northrop Music, which is a big music studio in Sherman Oaks, California. He was a terrific teacher. Then I went on to play in a group called the Robin Hood Band, and which was in high school. So I had a great experience. And then I went on to USC. Unfortunately, I didn't get accepted at the Curtis Institute of Music, which is where I really wanted to go. But things worked out quite well at USC for me. In fact, they worked out so well that I was getting to play in community orchestras. I was playing in the orchestra at USC. I was a teaching assistant when I was working on my master's degree. So things were going along just on a beautiful straight path until a car accident between me and a guy named Kenny Sawhill, whose father had been the band director at UCLA. As a matter of fact, we had a head-on collision in the Volkswagen Bug that I was driving at the time, and that sort of put my career at a sidelight. I lost teeth, and I couldn't play for a while, and because of that, I decided I wanted to do some other things to stay in music. I was in the debut orchestra. They were going to Europe. I couldn't go to Europe with them. I thought, what am I going to do? So I had been teaching in Palos Verdes as part of the USC community schools. And I knew people who played a variety of instruments. And I thought, let's start a band. And that's exactly what I did out in Palos Verdes. And I think we have a picture of me conducting that group back in the 1970s.
Do you miss that hair?
Boy, do I ever. I don't know. And I was so thin then. It was kind of anorexic. As I look at it now, I thought, my gosh, I didn't look healthy at all in those years. Of course, I had been in an automobile accident, but it did indeed give me something to do. And shortly thereafter, though, I had the opportunity to go, when I started to play again, to go up to the Idlewild School of Music and the Arts and perform up there. This is in the early 1970s. And they had invited too many wind players up there to fill in the orchestra. They had enough string players, but way too many wind players. So the conductor at the time said, would anybody like to conduct a wind ensemble made up of the extra wind players? And I thought, of course, I'll jump on this. And the group sounded terrific, Chuck, not because of anything I did, but because of how good the musicians were. And then the next year, I was invited to conduct both the band and the orchestra. And in the next picture, you'll see me conducting the band, the orchestra, and the choir in a piece called In Idlewild.
Oh, fantastic.
Yep.
And you're still there, right? You're still at Idlewild.
Well, yeah, but like a lot of everything else, it's been sort of postponed, and God knows what's going to happen in the future up there. Let's hope that everything gets back to normal, whatever that is. But I was so happy to begin to play again, and I could finally give my master's recital. The accident happened about 2 weeks before I was to give my master's degree recital.
Whoa.
A little over a year later, about 15 months later, I was able to give that master's recital. And right around that time, I joined a wind quintet called Mladi Wind Quintet, M-L-A-D-I. And that was the Czech word for youth. So when we got a little bit older, we had to change our names. And since nobody could pronounce the name of middle age in Czech, we decided to disband. But it was a terrific group to be a part of. John Steinmetz is in there, Kathy Robinson, Bill Alsop, Lisa Edelstein, some terrific players. We got a grant from the California Arts Council to perform on tour. And it was really, really terrific. And it was just about that same year, 1978, that I was hired at Pierce College in Woodland Hills. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to stick around there or what I wanted to do, because the band program, I must tell you, was pretty sad at the time. I was so glad, Chuck, that because I was the football band director, that the school was ranked number one, because we had enough players to be on the 50-yard line and spell out the number 1. So that was a good thing. And here I am conducting a concert inside with the LA Winds.
Wow, I remember
the Pierce band, and I still have that Madras sports coat in case anybody wants to borrow it. You're more than welcome. In fact, you can even have it. All you got to do is let me know.
I remember some times ago we had to rehearse in that room without air conditioning.
Exactly. It was hotter than Hades. And that around that time also, I began to do a lot of sub work with a number of orchestras, and one in particular, the Los Angeles Philharmonic. I was able to start performing with them around 1978, which was really a thrill. And for about 30 years, I continued as one of the major substitutes that they would use when they would use more players or somebody was sick, which is a great thrill. And here's a picture of me sitting on stage at Carnegie Hall in 1983 on tour with the Philharmonic. It was quite a thrill.
And you were telling me that picture was taken by David Weiss.
Yes, David Weiss, who passed away recently, tremendous oboe player. And a lot of people know him, Chuck, as you know him, as what?
As him playing the musical Saw. He went on the Tonight Show and he played there.
Exactly. He was a great player, a great man, and a nice photographer too, now that I think of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you're doing all these different things. You're back to playing and you're conducting, of course, all over the place. Oh, what were some of the things you did to move the Pierce Band forward during the 80s and 90s?
Well, one of the things I realized is how important touring was to musical organizations. I mean, it's all well and good to play for husband or wife, friend or lover, brother or sister, and those kinds of things. But the reality of that is, Chuck, as you know, that in all probability, those people are going to love you and love what you do regardless of what you do, because they have a vested interest in you and they want you to succeed. However, when you go on the road with something, the stakes are a little bit higher because people don't know you and aren't going to automatically like you. So it, I think, gets everybody keyed up to perform at their best when you take the show on the road. Plus, as we know, Chuck, from the tours we've been on together, it's just plain great fun. And it does a great deal to make the sense of group happen. So I've got a picture from 1986, which predates your involvement with the group, when the band was playing at a shopping center in, of all places, Las Vegas. And this was taken from the second level of the mall, shooting down at the Los Angeles Symphonic Winds. And many of the people in there are still with the group today. Steve Wallishan, the producer of this series, is back there helping out in the percussion section. He also helped us out. Well, I'm not sure how much help he was on French horn, but he did help out on, of course, trumpet, which is his main instrument. He plays beautifully, and also on euphonium. And here he is playing in the percussion section from Las Vegas. And the other thing that I did, Chuck, was I realized how important it was to get involved in community activities. And at that point, we also decided, and I was on the board of the Valley Cultural Center, and got the band to be featured performers at the summer series that the Valley Cultural Center did. And I think we have a picture from the back of the band of that. Those were really fantastic concerts, played for a big audience, and spread the gospel of the Pierce Band throughout all of Southern California and the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah, we did those for 2 years.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, sadly, I think they got too much into these tribute band things, and that sort of took over for us. But we had a great run there for a number of years. It was terrific.
We sure did. Now, the first decade of the 21st century, it saw the L.A. Pierce Symphonic Winds begin to build national and international reputation. Why were you so determined to go beyond the boundaries we usually think of for community orchestras or community groups?
Well, one of the reasons was I was playing with some really terrific musical organizations, the Pasadena Symphony, the Glendale Symphony, the Long Beach Symphony, and of course the Los Angeles Philharmonic. And I had been involved in some very high level things over the years. I did the Leonard Bernstein Mass back in 1972. And then in 1977, I got involved with the productions at the Pantages Theater, and things like Porgy and Bess, and we did I'm going to wash a man right out of my hair, South Pacific, and Hello Dolly with Carol Channing. So I was used to operating fortunately, at a very high level, and I wanted to continue that with the LA Winds. And I was so privileged to be part of some of these organizations. Here's a picture of me at the premiere, at the opening of the Walt Disney Concert Hall with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, members of the clarinet section of the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra. So I was very thrilled to be a part of that. And also, we began to take on a national reputation by applying to perform at the Midwest International Band and Orchestra Clinic in Chicago. And you were a part of that trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
You did a great job. And here's a picture of that from, I believe the year was 2004, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And there we are in front of thousands of people performing at a really great international event. And so by traveling on on an international scale, we were able to attract better players and also do higher level music. In fact, we were also invited to perform at the International Music Festival in Schladming, Austria, a couple of years later. I didn't know Schladming from nothing, but apparently that was the favorite ski spot of former Governor Schwarzenegger. He had been there a number of times. I had never been there. But anyway, here's a picture with Colonel Arnold Gabriel as our conductor in Schladming, Austria. That was a memorable trip, no question.
And another one of the long-term members, Joel, he actually got a hole-in-one on their golf course, and apparently it's supposed to be put on the wall there. as a important person.
Yes,
hole-in-one.
Absolutely. It was just a great time was had by all. It was a phenomenal journey. And also I was able to continue my playing career at this time. And I had become a member of the Los Angeles Opera Orchestra. And one of the neatest things that I was able to do was part of the stage band during several productions of Don Giovanni. You'll see me in this picture here. That's not me surrounded by the women sitting in the chair. That's Don Juan, or Don Giovanni as he's known. I'm the one in the background playing my clarinet in a mask and everything else. But it was great fun to be on stage during that performance. So I was able to keep up my professional career as well as helping to develop the Los Angeles Symphonic Winds.
As I told you, I love that picture. But that brings us to about 2010, and there were some really big changes coming. So tell us about those, please.
Well, yeah, the administration that came in at Pierce College was more concerned with the more traditional kinds of students and traditional kinds of activities, and the idea of having dealing with things that took place outside of the norm was quite challenging, and not something they felt was going to get in the way, perhaps, of the traditional role of community college education. However, I was not about to give things up. I still wanted to go on tour with us as we were sort of struggling to see what direction we would go in. In fact, we went to Luxembourg, we performed in Paris, and probably the highlight of the whole thing, at least one of the highlights for me, was when we performed in China. And we've got a picture of this coming right up.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was a great trip.
Yeah, when we pulled up in the bus, I thought, look, my God, look at that picture. No wonder they wanted a shot of me and the band. And they had that up right outside. The hall that we played in is located to the left. The halls were beautiful. It was kind of cold, but nonetheless, it was great playing for a truly foreign to us, foreign audience. So we kept up with the tours that we had done. And in fact, we also did some more local things. We came back to San Francisco in 2015, and that was just as the Pierce Band was getting to sort of our last hurrah with Pierce College. And you'll see a picture of where we played in the great outdoor amphitheater there in San Francisco in 2015. And I think that's you right there with your bassoon on the left, if I'm not mistaken, Chuck.
That's me right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a great time in the beautiful band show in Golden Gate Park. That was just terrific to be a part of that. And the last hurrah for our affiliation with Pierce College took place the next year when we played at Disney Hall. And that kind of inaugurated our work as an independent organization where we are right now. So let's take a look at that picture on the stage at Disney Hall.
That was so wonderful.
It was a great moment. And it was great to think back to all the great things we've done in the past and the things that we have lined up to do in the future. And now we're simply trying to make it through and do a great job in the present.
Well, as an independent organization now, we have to find our own funding. And so we have a board, we have an ops committee, and we are talking constantly about better funding for the band. And as a matter of fact, right now we've got a matching grant going on till the end of January. And anybody who wants to check that out can go to our website and click on the button to maybe donate, help the band out to buy more music and get ready for when we can be together again.
That would be just great. That would be absolutely. And Chuck, I want to thank you for the time you've taken to be the one who interviewed me. You did a great job. I hope I got most of the questions, answered them correctly for you. That was my hope.
Well, we'll find out later when they post their comments.
Yeah, please. And that reminds me, if you do have comments, please mark that comment section. We'll try to answer things. So Chuck, thank you so much for being with us. Stick around in case there are questions for us coming in. Okay. Thank you, Chuck. All right. So now I'd like to bring to your attention a woman who played a great solo that her good friend Ross Wright wrote for us a couple of years ago. It's called Sue's Night Out, and or Sue's Night on the Town. I forget the title. She'll correct me when she comes on. But it was a terrific performance that she did of that first-rate work. Many of you were there to hear it in person. And those of you who saw one of the episodes we did of the Summer Sound series know that she's very interested in and does a great job performing on Celtic instruments, Scottish, Irish instruments, and she also made a presentation to the LA Unified School District. So that was really a terrific thing. And we've invited her on to share some information that she has on these instruments and to perform for us today. Please join me in welcoming the co-principal flutist of the Los Angeles Symphonic Winds, Susan Winsberg. Susan.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. I know that your schedule was such that you didn't know if this was going to be possible, but I'm so glad that you were here and for the contribution you made with Ross's piece, the name of which was?
Sue's Night on the Town.
On the Town. Okay, there we go. And that was just great. Ross did a great job of writing that. And, you know, with your interest in original instruments versus modern instruments, how do you find making that transition going back and forth? Is that challenging for you, difficult for you, or now at this point you simply just do it?
Both. I do simply just do it, but it isn't easy because, well, of course, the Irish flute has holes and the modern flute has keys. And it takes a little getting used to the holes when you're used to keys because you really got to aim correctly. So sometimes my Irish flute playing suffers because I have to practice the modern flute the most. And they really do, each one deserves a full study on its own. So I would say there aren't enough hours in the day, but now there kind of are.
Yeah, good for you. Now, what was it that first attracted you to these well, they're not really exotic instruments, but they're folk instruments. And compared to the normal flute, the normal oboe, the normal clarinet, they are sort of exotic. What first got you interested in these instruments?
Well, my mother is from Scotland, born and raised. So I was always exposed to Scottish music anyway. Now, Scottish music doesn't involve the Irish whistle and the Irish wooden flute, but the music is similar. You know, it's all under the umbrella of Celtic music. So when I was 15, we spent a whole summer in Ireland, in County Clare, Ireland. And that's where I kind of made the transition from Scottish to Irish music and got my first whistle. And then eventually in the 90s, I started playing the wood flute also. So that it was, my influence came from my mom, but then that summer in Ireland really took it to a new level.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm so glad for our sake and the sake of our audience that you got to that other level, because that's just really some great playing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be performing for us today?
Well, in Irish music, you have what's called airs, and there's free airs and then airs that are just basically slow melodies. So I'm doing one of each. Now, the free air here is not a real air. It was composed by James Horner for the movie Titanic. That's kind of in the spirit of an Irish air. And it's played in the movie on the whistle and on the uilleann pipes, which is the Irish pipes. And then the other air that I'm playing is actually one that has meter, but it's very slow. And it was written by Turlough O'Carolan. It almost has a classical sound to it. Now, normally you're not supposed to use vibrato at all when you play Irish music. But for me, Turlough O'Carolan is not typical Irish in the sense of like it needs to have that straight sound. So you will hear a little vibrato sneaking in there.
All right, we're looking forward to it. So let's have a listen to this. I'm looking forward. I've heard it before, and it didn't get put out when we did the series of Summer Sounds of the LA Winds, just in the interest of time. So I'm looking forward to sharing your artistry with our audience today.
Thank you. And I'll play an air for you that you'll probably recognize because it's not actually a traditional air. recognize that? That's from the Titanic. And then for an air that has rhythm but is slow, I'm going to play something written by Turlough O'Carolan, who is a very famous figure in Irish history. He lived in the 1700s, and he was a blind harper. Now, a person who plays the Celtic harp is not a harpist, it's a harper. He was a blind harper who traveled the countryside and took the news of the day to distant locations and played for his supper and wrote compositions for wealthy patrons, and he's considered by many the national composer of Ireland. So this is Blind Mary by Turlough O'Carolan, played on my sea whistle. This is a Michael Burke whistle.
That's beautiful, Sue. Thank you so much for sharing that. And there's a question that Freddie Roca has. She says, what's the difference between all those flutes and whistles?
Yeah, we end up with quite a collection of them. Well, they're all in different keys. So, for example, I played the Titanic air on the A whistle, and then I played the Turlough O'Carolan air on a C whistle, and I have a whole slew of whistles in different keys. The most common one is the D whistle, so I have a bunch of D whistles. And then you have them in different materials. You have brass, wood, aluminum, different metals and materials, and also cuts. You have conical bore and cylindrical bore. So they all give them a different feel. And then, of course, the most traditional whistle of all is just the tin whistle, the one that costs all of like $8 and and has a little plastic fipple. And, so, and then the wood flutes can come in different material, different woods also, and with keys, without keys. So the Celtic flutists end up with a whole collection of whistles and flutes.
Well, thank you for sharing two of them today with us. We really appreciate that. And for also the knowledge that you bring to it and your great artistry, just as Kelly's great artistry was there on the oboe earlier. Thank you so much. So let me remind you as we close out this section today of what's coming up 2 weeks from now. Same time, same station, 4 o'clock on Wednesdays every 2 weeks. So we will see you, I believe that's the 20th, if I'm not mistaken, at 4 o'clock. And we'll have, the name of the show is That's Entertainment. And we'll have 2 people from the entertainment industry. One, Carolyn Maraghi, an actress who's been in a number of television shows. She's also a great trumpet player, plays trumpet in the band. And some of you may remember that she did a great reading of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas a couple of years ago. So Carolyn will be on to talk about the entertainment industry, as will Claudia Peterson, who is the technical director for a number of productions that you may have seen at the Wallace Annenberg Theater. So that's going to be great. I will also be performing for you. We've got an arrangement that Karen Rasmussen did, and Karen's going to be performing at the end of the show of The Terminal, as a matter of fact. And I've got film clips from that great Tom Hanks movie. And as I mentioned, Karen Rasmussen will also be playing. So it should be a great, great program. If you've got questions or comments, please send them in. We'll do our best to answer them. And now I think I'd like to bring back the whole cast to say goodbye to you. And we will wave goodbye and thank all of them. Let's get Chuck up. There he is. So thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the next episode of 4 Winds on Wednesdays.